Connecting the SWAC, the MEAC, SIAC, and the CIAA. The HBCU experience lives here. It's the HBCU Report with Rob Calloway.
This is the HBCU Report being heard via Spreaker.com. We are powered by SportsNewsAndBrews.com, your source for sports, black news, political news, and the latest on your favorite craft beers. Log on to SportsNewsAndBrews.com right now. I am Rob Calloway, and welcome to the second edition for the 2016 season of the HBCU Report. Don't forget, you can follow us on social media. We're on Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter at HBCU Report. And for those of you just tuning in, welcome to the show. Thank you guys for finding us, however you found us. We really appreciate it. Another jam-packed show coming up for you and yours. On last week's show, we featured the MEAC SWAC Challenge between Alcorn State and Bethune-Cookman. We were joined by Alcorn head coach Fred McNair and Cookman's head coach Terry Sims. We were also joined by Executive Director of the Air Force Reserve Celebration Bowl, Mr. John Grant. Now, it was a good week of action. Only one downside, in my opinion, and that was the fact that the MEAC SWAC Challenge ended up being canceled due to inclement weather down in Daytona. Not sure how this thing is going to affect the final outcome when it comes to the Celebration Bowl and voting and all of that stuff. But it's definitely disappointing that the first nationally televised game of the season, of course, this game had a 1 o'clock kickoff on ESPN, was delayed and eventually canceled. But what we do know for sure is that the 2017 game has been set, MEAC SWAC Challenge. It will happen at Mumford Stadium in Baton Rouge, Louisiana, Sunday, September 3rd, between Southern University and South Carolina State University. And so that should be pretty good. And you know what? I just like to commend ESPN and the MEAC and the SWAC for getting this thing right, even though the game didn't really happen. Well, it was canceled. Part of it was canceled because they got a few minutes of action in. If you remember, when this thing first started, they tried to have it in a centralized location in Orlando. You know, but the thing about having a game like this in Orlando is you might bring in Texas Southern and you might bring in a school like Morgan State, two schools that have no fan base in the state of Florida. And then you expect these people to travel from Houston to Orlando or from Maryland to Orlando. And that's not always going to happen. And so I think they finally got this thing right with the whole, doing it at the stadiums, at the school's home stadium. So you had Bethune-Cookman this year, the MEAC representative. So next year it'll be in Louisiana at Southern Stadium. They are the SWAC representative. And so I think that's big, and I think it will give this event longevity. Elsewhere in week one action, Tennessee State. And we're going to talk a lot about them coming up. Tennessee State defeated Arkansas Pine Bluff 44-0 in the John Merritt Classic. Shea Ackerman Carter, the quarterback for Tennessee State, completed 18 of 32 passes for 259 yards and 2 touchdowns in the victory. The reigning SIAC champion Miles Golden Bears, led by my man Reginald Ruffin, scored 34 consecutive points to come back from a 21-0 second quarter deficit in their 34-21 win over Fort Valley and Birmingham. Last year's HBCU champion, the North Carolina A&T Aggies, they defeated St. Augustine 62-0. Ole Miss transfer quarterback Devontae Kincaid of Grambling State University completed 10 of 18 passes for 170 yards and 2 touchdowns and ran 4 times for 139 yards and 2 touchdowns in Grambling's 72-12 blowout victory over Virginia Lynchburg. Also, Prairie View, they opened their new stadium, Panther Stadium, last Saturday with a 29-25 win over Texas Southern. And then my man, Reggie Barlow, Bama State alum. He is the first-year head coach over at Virginia State. Got his first win in his very first game, 34-9 over Lenoir-Rhyne. So big shouts out to Reggie Barlow. I can already tell you this as I take a sip of my Powerade. Reggie Barlow will be joining this show next week. We were going to have him on this week, but we were finally able to make some other things happen, and we found some other things that we wanted to talk about. And so just push Reggie back to next week. And so we're going to have him on. Of course, Me and Reggie, we go back. He's a little bit older than me, but, Bama State, man, it's a great place, and the alum, treat each other like family. And so me and Reggie have had a long-standing relationship, and so he would definitely be on the show. Reggie Barlow, for those of you who don't know who Reggie is, Reggie Barlow will be joining the show next week. Now, this week we have a full slate of games coming up. Today we're going to take a look at some of those, plus news and notes from week one as we get you ready for this weekend's kickoffs. Dan Land, the head coach of the Albany State Golden Rams, joins the show to talk about the third annual Whitewater Classic, which happens today versus Tuskegee and Phoenix City, Alabama, But coming up after the break, Tennessee State University head coach Rod Reed calls in to talk about his team's matchup versus the Jackson State University Tigers in today's 27th annual Southern Heritage Classic in Memphis, Tennessee. This is the HBCU Report, being heard via Spreaker.com. We are powered by SportsNewsAndBrews.com, your source for sports, black news, political news, and the latest on your favorite craft beers. Log on to SportsNewsAndBrews.com right now. Follow us. We're on Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter at HBCU Report. And coming up after the break, Rod Reed of Tennessee State University joins the show. This is the HBCU Report, and we'll be right back after these words.
I heard on the news about that 5-year-old who found his uncle's gun. The kid didn't know it was loaded.
I heard on the news about that 14-year-old girl who was bullied online. For like a year, she couldn't take it anymore, so she got her dad's gun from his nightstand.
I heard on the news about that guy who broke into someone's house, stole a gun from the hall closet.
He accidentally shot his cousin in the head.
She killed herself.
And later, killed the owner of the store he was trying to rob.
If you own a gun, you have a full-time responsibility. When you aren't using it, be sure it can't get into the hands of curious children, troubled teenagers, a thief, or anyone else who might misuse it. Your family, friends, and neighbors are all counting on you. Remember, always, lock it up. For more information on firearms storage safety, visit ncpc.org. This message brought to you by the National Crime Prevention Council, the Bureau of Justice Assistance, and the Ad Council.
Connecting the SWAC, the MEAC, SIAC, and the CIAA. The HBCU experience lives here. It's the HBCU Report with Bob Calloway.
Good Saturday morning to you and yours. This is the HBCU Report, being heard via Spreaker.com. We are powered by SportsNewsAndBrews.com, and I am Rob Calloway. Don't forget, SportsNewsAndBrews.com is your official source for sports, black news, political news, and the latest on your favorite craft beer. So log on to SportsNewsAndBrews.com right now. Coming up today, we have the 27th annual Southern Heritage Classic going down in Memphis, Tennessee, between Tennessee State University and Jackson State University. Now, this is one of the better promoted classics. This right here, I always rank like the Florida Classic, the Magic City Classic, the Bayou Classic. I always rank those 1, 2, 3. And if they're 1, 2, 3, not in any particular order, then the Southern Heritage Classic is right there in that group. And right now we're being joined by a good friend of the show, Rod Reed, the head football coach of the Tennessee State University Tigers, making like his 100th appearance right here on the show. First of all, Coach, welcome back to the HBCU Report.
Hey, thanks for having me, guys.
Oh, not a problem, man. So you're now into your 7th season as head coach at Tennessee State. In your opinion, how have you grown as a head coach and mentor to young men over those 7 years?
Well, it's been 7 years of a little down, but a lot of ups. And, last year we were down a little bit. And it just challenges you each year. Each class that you have, week in and week out is a challenge. But I think this class is a class that's really gelled together, and we got a lot of young talent that's playing on the field. We only have 10 seniors on this team. So it's a challenge in itself every day, when you go out there. But I've matured over the years, just, allowing my coaches to do a little more coaching and me delegate a little bit more, and still trying to stay on the football side of things. There's just a lot of things to be done at our level as a head coach. So it's been a fun ride, and hopefully we can keep it on the high this year. All
right. Now, last season, your team finished the season with a 4-6 record 1-6 in the very tough Ohio Valley Conference. What were some of the things that you and your staff focused on during the offseason to get this team back in the conversation when you talk about postseason?
Well, you obviously you focus on recruiting when you've done when you finish the season, especially when you finish a bad season. We focused a lot on recruiting, trying to upgrade ourselves on both sides of the ball. And we knew that we had to find some help on the defensive line, and we also knew that we had to find some help at receiver on offense to make us a more explosive offense. I think we went out and got a couple of playmakers and added some guys to the fold, and I think some of those kids showed up on last weekend, and it was good to get them out there and to see them play well, and that lets you know you did a great job in recruiting. But we still have a big test. One game doesn't make a team, so we still got a lot of things that we need to work on. And, you make your biggest jump, so to speak. That's what everybody says between your first and second week. So I want to see how we progress this week and as we clean up stuff from last week and just continue to grow.
This is the HBCU Report being heard via Spreaker.com. We are powered by SportsNewsAndBrews.com. Rod Reed, head football coach of the Tennessee State University Tigers, joining us right now. Tennessee State in action versus Jackson State in the 27th Annual Southern Heritage Classic going down in Memphis, Tennessee. Now, you talked about your playmakers, Coach. Now, this year's team includes quarterback O'Shea Ackerman-Carter, who had a really good game last week, and wide receiver Patrick Smith. What can you tell our listening audience about those guys in addition to your defensive end, Ebenezer Ogundeku?
Well, we saw our offensive production go down last year when O'Shea went down. Butler did a great job stepping in, but, when you lose your starter, it kind of stings a little bit. And we lost him for a good part of the season last year. And, production-wise, scoring-wise, we went down a lot. We lost 2 games in overtime. And, having him out there fully healthy and watching him, go through his progressions and, pull it down and run it when he needed to, audible at the line of scrimmage, that was great to see. He made some good decisions with the football the other night, and hopefully he'll continue to do that. And, Ebo, he's just a kid that gets after it every play. Every snap is 100 miles an hour for him. Sometimes you got to slow him down in practice, but he's a kid that hopefully can give us 12, 15 sacks this year and put a lot of pressure on the quarterback without having to blitz a whole lot. And that's what we're hoping he can do. We got some other guys, Latrell Lee, Sidney Hammond, Marvin Maddox, all those guys out there are hunting, and hopefully we'll get great productivity out of our pass rush.
Now, absolutely. Now, let's look back at last week. You guys opened the season with a 44-0 win over Arkansas Pine Bluff in the John Merritt Classic. Now, from an offensive and defensive standpoint, Coach, you guys were able to execute at a very high level. Even though TSU pitched a shutout, what were some of the things, if any, you felt your team really needed to work on this week heading into this Southern Heritage Classic?
I mean, we did some things that first game, teams with first games do. We made a lot of mental mistakes. There were too many pre-snap penalties, I thought, last week. We made some controllable mistakes on controllable penalties, I think. We had a couple of personal fouls, and those are things that you can control. And, pre-snap penalties are drive killers. So we got to try to cut down on those, and we got to try to execute a little better. We missed some assignments last week. We left some guys open on defense. And then offensively, we had a couple of drops, but overall, I was pleased. Anytime you can win and put that many points on the board and not allow any points, you got to be pleased with the victory, but you just can't be satisfied with where you are as a team.
Absolutely. Now, this weekend, your team is seeing a Jackson State University team coming under first-year head coach Tony Hughes. Now, last week, they were out in Vegas, a 63-13 loss to UNLV. Now, looking at this team on tape, I know that they weren't able to really fully execute the way that they would have liked against the competition. But are there any things that you see as major concerns heading into this game?
They got a big physical defensive line. They got some linebackers that play downhill, and I think that defense is led by Javancy Jones. We've had to contend with that kid for the last 3 or 4 years. He's a heck of a talent on the football field. And on the offensive side, 81, I mean, he's a go-to guy, big-time wide receiver, Daniel Williams. I think he's the next level type guy. And Ivy, I keep telling everybody I talk to, we need to check his birth certificate or his eligibility, because it just seems like he's been there forever. And